Welcome back, once again adventurers, to Let's Play Steins. In the last episode, Suzuha informed us that the only reason that CERN knew of our whereabouts to begin with was because they intercepted the very first email from Rintaro to Daru, which essentially triggered this whole situation. Given the fact that that email was sent when Daru was tinkering with the PhoneWave TBA and it got sent back in time, which alerted CERN's network, so to speak. That network is currently being guarded by the infamous proprietary code of the we need an IBM 5100 in order to decrypt. Now, according to Suzuha, if we do this, then that is basically the only way to jump from attractor field alpha to attractor field beta, to jump to a future in which CERN's totalitarian dystopian rule never happens. Of course, we don't really have a lot of window of opportunity to repair the broken time machine at the moment, so we're going to have to jump back 2 days, because that is the limit of the time leap machine's capabilities. Of course, the main reason for doing all of this is for one main reason only: preventing Mayuri's death from this world line from ever happening as well. Suzuha and Kurisu give it an encouraging nod on agreement. And with that said, there is no point. Who cares about that? This isn't a game. Mayuri's life hangs in the balance. You know, that is a very good question. That's interesting. Apparently the resistance in the future uses Germanic names in Norse mythology as well. Some things never change, eh, Kurisu? But there's no time for this. Mayuri's life hangs in the balance. There's no time for this nonsense. Kurisu sets up the time leap machine while Suzuha goes to turn on the 42-inch CRT. Well before Mayuri returns, I leap. And the machine is on, discharge is ready. 3, 2, 1. Go. And back in time. A full 2 days. Back to the 11th. Hopefully that's just enough time. Of course, we can't go back before 2 o'clock, unfortunately, so we have to go for 2:21. When I come to, I'm standing with my phone in my hand. Of course, with all these jumps in time, I don't really make any preparations, so I don't really remember what actually happened on the 11th, so to speak. While I wait for the ringing in my ears to subside, I check the date and time on my phone screen. It's the 11th, 2:21 p.m. Now we have 2 more days. Let's just hope we can make those days count. As a matter of fact, I leapt twice. First to the 2 p.m. on the 13th, when the machine was completed. From there I leapt an additional 48 hours back in time to 2 p.m. on the 11th. So, as it stands, we won't be able to leap back again because the time leap machine hasn't been completed. And unfortunately, I would say, well, you may say that, well, you can just complete it now, and you can go back in time. Problem is, I think the time leap machine takes 2 days to complete as well. And we need to fix the time machine rather than the time leap machine. It was my first consecutive leap, but it seems to have gone well. So far, so good. I immediately head downstairs to see Suzuha. Of course, we'll have to let her know all the information we have in advance, just in case. I'm relieved to see that her hand isn't burned. When I explain the situation, Suzuha raises the rat icon to confirm my story. Well, seeing as how you're drawn tighter, that should be smooth sailing at this point. After she realizes that I'm telling the truth, I take her back to the lab and have her repeat the explanation that she gave us before I time leaped. In other words, back in the last episode. We come to the conclusion that all we can do right now is try our best to repair Suzuha's time machine. And fortunately Daru, in spite of, or maybe perhaps because of being a super hacker, is also the most knowledgeable person we have when it comes to hardware. So he's going to be coming along, and he is unusually enthusiastic. I guess Suzuha's talk of attractive fields and divergence and correcting history's mistakes got his blood pumping. Wouldn't be holding my breath on that one, there, Rintaro. And apparently Mayuri has something to say. Mayuri stops us as we're about to leave the lab. Indeed, and I really wish I knew what it was, but because I didn't have the foresight to check back on my earlier episodes, I don't know what that is, so we're going to have to remember the hard way, it would seem. I'm as much in the dark as you there, Daru. Ah, that's right. The search for Suzuha's father. I thought Suzuha was lying about that, but I don't think she was. But when I turn to her, she looks away. Suzuha seems a little distressed and disappointed, but actually wait, Suzuha's father in 2036. Since we're actually back in time 26 years, then that would mean, I think I can understand, well, I myself, speaking of course for me, because I don't think Rintaro and the others quite know the dilemma that Suzuha faces at the moment. But something has just occurred to me, and it also inspired the thought of Dragon Ball Z and a certain blue-haired time traveler, who was known by the way as Trunks. If my thinking is correct, Suzuha's father would actually be a teenager in 2010. Now I know it seems like I'm leaping ahead a bit here, but I don't think my thinking is entirely unwarranted. Anyway, we yeah, I don't think Daru and Mayuri have put two and two together to think that now that we know that Suzuha is actually the time-traveling John Titor, or at least a John Titor. But Mayuri is always Mayuri. But Rintaro is still worried, and he wants to get the machine done as quickly as possible. When I show reluctance, Mayuri puffs out her cheeks. I know it says Mayuri's. It's probably supposed to say Mayuri's cheeks puff out, but that... Never mind. Bad grammar is still bad grammar. Yeah, but now that we know that Suzuha is a time traveler, the search for her father in question is actually has a bit of a wrinkle in it. And what promise was that? Indeed, and we were also going to hold a celebratory party whether or not she actually found her father. We convinced her to stay by promising to help look for her father.
So, だったな。
すずさんがここに来たのはね、使命とかもあるけど、やっぱりお父さんに会いたかったからかなって思って。
Something tells me that this meeting is going to be a little bit more awkward, especially for Suzuha.
もしそうなら、マユシーは会わせてあげたいです。
But we did make that promise, so the only thing to do is to see that through to the end. If Mayuri feels that strongly about it, then there's no way I can refuse. Nobody refuses the great Mayushi. And I would definitely say innocent to a fault, myself. Suzuha sniffles. Because you had some idea that he actually might be here in this point in time. The key word here is point in time.
2010年に秋葉原にいたことは分かってるんだ。
本当にいるのか?
Well, she did say her father was barrel tighter.
失礼だな。この時代ならきっとまだ若くてかっこいいね。
Yeah, this is probably going to short-circuit Mayuri's brain cells there.
名前はバレルタイターだったか。
Of course, we still don't know his real name.
外国人さん？多分日本人。バレルタイターはレジスタンス時代のコードネーム。だから今の2010年の時点だとまだそう名乗ってないと思う。
So barrel tighter is Suzuha's father's code name. That makes sense. So that's why Suzuha called herself John Tighter. And John is a very mundane name anyway, so... Well, a very inconspicuous name, so to speak, in that it's very common. But unfortunately, Suzuha doesn't know her father's real name. Which makes things just a little bit more difficult. Suzuha looks like she's about to cry for an instant, but she quickly covers it with a bitter smile. And in 2036, Suzuha's father was possibly killed by CERN. Hearing that, I realize how hellish the world she came from must be.
では、アモネという名はどこから？
母さんのせいだよ。
Well, that says something, at least. Hopefully we don't run into her.
手がかり。あ、そういえば。
Suzuha clasps her hands together and starts patting her pockets. A few seconds later, she reaches into one and pulls out... a pin. That appears to be, Well, that's certainly a interesting design there. I've seen Suzuha fiddling around with it before. Maybe it's the insignia of the resistance of 2036, which would actually make kind of sense. It's just a regular pin, the kind you stick on your hat or bag.
なんか書いてあるよ。
Indeed, there appear to be a few engraved letters. It reads Ocean asterisk 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 A 7010 7010
これ父さんの形見なんだよね。
or 7010 or something like that. Apparently this belonged to Barrel Titer. Indeed, a keepsake.
ググってみる。
I don't think we're actually going to find it on Google. Daru runs a search but only gets incomprehensible foreign sites. Well, given the fact that the pen was, given the fact that Suzuha is from 2036, it's safe to assume that that pen doesn't technically exist yet, except in the form that it's in right now. In which case, that pen technically hasn't been manufactured yet, so we're not going to find it.
海外のサイトは抜きにして考えていいと思う。
But apparently, Suzuha is convinced that her father is in Akihabara, which is the only narrow lead we've got. But Akihabara is a large place. Daru narrows the search down to Japanese sites. But even then, none of the results look relevant. That's basically Google in a nutshell. Again, the whole future thing might put a spanner in the works. There has to be some kind of hint, not if that pin doesn't actually exist yet in 2010, it doesn't, Mayuri. With Suzuha's permission, I take a picture of the pin. Well, can't see why not.
すずさんのお父さん探しに賛成の人。
I think everyone's in favor of that one, Mayuri. But Rintaro wants to argue that there's no time for that, but Mayuri's right when she says that the time machine won't be ready for a while, so I guess there's no harm in letting her have her way. After all, there's no point in running, not even with 2 days head start. Even if I dragged Mayuri to the ends of the earth, we wouldn't be able to escape her death. I know that now.
反対はしない。
No objections,
おかえり
indeed.
ありがとう。
If only you could keep laughing like that forever. Daru raises his hand in agreement, as does Kurisu. It's decided. We'll help Suzuha find her father.
みんな、サンキュー。
Maybe there might just be something about that pin that might be a clue as to his whereabouts.
私はあくまで1975年へ行くことを優先したい。それが父さんの意志だったからさ。
Indeed, that's why she was going to go back in time in the first
てなわ
place.
けで、タイムマシン修理のめどが立ったら、父さんを探すのは諦めるってことで、どうかな。
Mayuri is still confused, but given the time causality thing, that's not really that surprising.
そんだけ探して見つかんないならさ、つまり会える運命になかったってことだと思うし。
As long as we don't inadvertently cause a grandfather paradox, and hopefully we don't, I suppose that's the way it is. It's a relief to hear Suzuha say that.
で、どうやって探すん？
That is a good question there,
ピ
Daru.
ンバッジしかヒントがないのなら、これを元にするしかないだろう。餅は餅屋とも言うし、マニアなショップを当たってみれば。
Again, that really depends on the fact that Suzuha's father actually has it made in 2010.
マニアなショップって？
There are probably a few
秋葉にはマニア
stores
御用
here
達
at
の
Akihabara.
アンダーグラウンドのショップが数多くあるだろう。
And of course, Rintaro seems to know every nook and cranny of the place. Surprisingly so. It's hard to sneak into Radaikan in the daytime. There isn't a crowd out front like before, but pedestrian traffic remains constant, and there is the broken time machine, undisturbed as always. It takes about 30 minutes to find a way in. I'm surprised that there are no police officers guarding the place. Then again, given the state of the room, that's probably not really surprising at this point. Kurisu is back at the lab, working on the time leap machine because it doesn't exist yet. It needs to be complete by 2 PM on the 13th. If she's late, it could affect my ability to time leap, which would lower my chances of saving Mayuri. Speaking of which, she wandered off somewhere in search of Suzuha's father.
どうだ？
And that leaves Daru to probably accompany us, since he is probably the only one with the technical knowledge that may or may not help us fix the time machine. And speaking of which, he is examining it right now, while we keep a lookout. And unfortunately, all that weather damage really did a number on it. Daru crawls out of the machine. He's covered in sweat and his breathing is heavy. You know, what do you expect? He's a hacker, not an engineer. We quickly help pull out his huge body out. The time machine is completely visible from the street, so we have to hide in here. If someone were to see us up here, they might report us to the police as vandals. It's been 2 weeks since the satellite first appeared, but Akiba still has tourists who come just to see it. We need to take care not to be noticed. But I believe that will be in the next episode, adventurers. So when we return, we'll see if Daru's technical skills in hardware are just as good as his hacking skills. As always, until next we meet.